Okay, so I just got a request to show how did I create that little synthesizer demo I did a few months ago, but unfortunately the code for this is not really readable or usable in any way. So what I'll do instead is create something similar, maybe simpler from scratch, and show you how it's done. First, quick recapitulation for those who didn't follow the official tutorials on how to enable the synthesizer. So you need to do two things. First of all, in the engine folder, you should somewhere have a file called Windows engine.ini, and what you need to do here is to uncomment this audio device module name like this. Of course, save it and restart the editor. I have already done that, and under plugins you need to enable synthesis and sound utilities. Okay, with that out of the way, let's begin. So we're going to create a new actor, just standard blueprint actor like this. This is going to be our actual synthesizer, so let's call it synth, and let's place it somewhere on the map. Okay, let's open it in Blueprint Editor. I'm going to add a synthesizer component, module synth, like this. Yeah, it's got, oh, I cannot make it a root component. I need something to make it visible. Okay, I'll just parent it to some cube or something. I don't have any good model for that. Now let's make sure it actually plays. So I'm going to go to event graph, and there's a small bug in UE419, and the bug is that this module synth is disabled by default. So you need to enable auto activate over here. And now let's create some preset. And that's of course going to control the parameters of the synthesizer. I'm going to make it a variable, so I have more convenient way to edit it. Okay, type is module synth preset. It's gonna look like this. And on begin play, first thing I'm going to do is to apply this preset to the synth like this. And now I should have some sound when I play note on. Let's set pitch to say 60, velocity to 100, and see if it plays. So okay, we can hear it, that's good. So now let's turn it into a sequencer. First thing we need for a sequencer is some sort of clock or something that we'll call update function in a regular interval. Unfortunately, it depends on frame rate, and delay function is extremely inaccurate. So instead we are going to use timers. So I'm going to create a timer by event like this. I'm going to get rid of this test like this, and this timer will call event. So we are going to create a custom event. Let's call it clock, and I'm gonna make it loop, and for starters let's call it 10 times a second, so this time will be 0.1. Okay, so every 0.1 second this clock event will be called. Next I'm going to add a variable called, let's call it step, and it's going to be an integer, and of course every clock this step will be incremented like this. And before that we'll have the actual update function that will call the note on events. So we got that, and now let's create some note structure. Okay, so I'm going to create a blueprint structure. This will be holding the information of our note events. So let's call it note struct, for example. Our note structure will have following properties. So I just decided I'm gonna turn this into a clone of the infamous TB303. How about that? So we'll need following parameters. So let's call it note on. This will be on off boolean. Let's call the second one pitch. That will be an integer. Another one will be octave. Since this is TB303, we're gonna need two more, and that's gonna be slide and accent. I don't know if I'm going to actually implement accent, but let's have it for completion. Next, we're going to create a function that will actually turn this note structure into note on event. So let's go create a new function. Let's call it play note, and it's going to take as an input this note structure. And I'm going to split it like this. We're going to need reference to the modular synth. Okay, like this. So when this will get called, we'll call note on, and if the note is not playing, it will play note off. Okay, let's add a branch here, like this. Note on is off, it will instead play note off, and we're gonna shut off all the notes like this. As you know, 303 is monophonic, so we can simply call all notes off. Okay, so next we need pitch. We're gonna add let's say our base frequency in here, plus 48 semitones. Let's do this, and we're gonna also add an octave. So octave parameter will be multiplied by, sorry about that, will be multiplied by 12, like this, and we'll also add it to the pitch. Okay, so I'm going to do slide and accent later, so let's test if this play note function will work. So now I'm gonna play a note every step.
Let's make this note structure with note on. And now if I play this thing, it should play some staccato. It doesn't. I forgot something. And that something is velocity. Of course, let's set it to 100, for example. Now it should play. Very good. It does. Of course, it doesn't sound good because we don't have a slide implemented yet, so it's always sliding right now, so it sounds like a single tone. And we can change that. So I'm going to make some space in here, like this, and duration will, I'm going to select here and link it to slide, and if slide is true, I'm going to set it to -1, so it will play indefinitely. But if the slide is off, I'm gonna play it only for 1/20th of a second. Or like, hold on, why is it not accepting that? Like this. Let's play it. Okay, now it's playing multiple notes. And of course I'm gonna have to change the synth preset so it sounds more like a 303. I'm gonna do that later in more detail, but the quick thing I need to change is to shorten the release time. Let's set it to just 10, and I'm gonna turn off stereo delay because I'm going to do it later with the effect chain. Okay, so it's off. Now it should sound better. Okay, now it sounds kind of like TB303, but it only plays one note over and over, which is actually kind of boring. So we are going to create actual sequence for it to play. And for that we are going to use a new concept called data tables. So this one is in miscellaneous. Let's call it. Let's select the structure that we are going to use. We are going to use node struct that we just created. Let's call it sequence. Okay, let's open it and let's add a few nodes. Let's just start with 4. Okay, so let's say first node will be on, and it will be just middle C. Let's set another one which will be off, and let's set another one that will be on, and it will be middle C with sliding on, and another one will be octave down, still sliding. It's not going to sound very good, but it's just for testing. Next, we need some way to actually play back this sequence. So let's go back to our synth and graph. And let's get data table role names. And here we select our sequence table. It will go like this. And what this will return is names of the rows of the sequence. So this new row 1, 2. Okay, we are going from here, gonna get a number. We are going to get the row number current step, and I'm gonna quickly add a module here. So it's going to play the 4 steps over and over. Now let's get data table row, and from the same data set we are going to get a row of this name. And what this is going to return is node structure. So now I'm going to turn off recording for a few minutes, and I'm going to create more interesting sequence. Okay, how about this one? So I increased the number of steps to 16 and added a few more steps, and now it sounds like this. So that's beginning to sound like acid. Okay, I'm gonna add a few improvements to the actual synthesizer now. First of all, let's change sound a little bit. And one of the important things we need to change is the filter, because it's not acid unless it has resonant filter. So I'm going to use state variable because this is closer to what actual TB303 has. Let's increase resonance and move the filter frequency lower. And it sounds like this now, which is much better, but it's missing another property of 303, namely that the filter has envelope on it. And we can do this in modular synthesizer by using patches. So as you can see here, we do have modulation envelope, and we need to link it to the filter frequency. So I'm going to lower this a bit, and I'm going to add a patch, and the source of this patch will be envelope, and I'm going to add a patch cable, and the patch will lead to filter frequency, and the depth will be, I don't know, let's do 100. I'm not sure if it's in hertz. Let's see. That's clearly too much. Maybe it's not. Maybe we just need to set sustain to 0, because of course it's going to fade back to original frequency immediately, like this. Now it's good. Okay, few more tweaks. We are going to use this accent, and what accent controls is how quickly the filter modulation goes back to 0. Okay, so I'm gonna set decay time of the envelope based on whether accent is on or off. So if it's off, it's gonna be 100 milliseconds, and if it's on, it's gonna be, let's just say 30. Okay, plug it in, and let's edit our sequence so we are using accent somewhere. Let's say first node will be accented. Which one? And maybe those 3 here. Okay, so it should sound better now. Now it's even more similar to 303.
Okay, so this is the most basic sequencer, and I promised I'm gonna add a few effects to it, so let's do that. Okay, so first of all, let's actually modulate the cutoff frequency of the filter. So we're going to create a timeline, and it's going to be independent of the steps. Let's call it filter. Let's double click it, and we are going to add a float track here, and say it's going to start with 0, and it's going to rise to 1 second, and it's going to do some other stuff here. Nothing too fancy, just a simple sequence. And now when we go back to event graph, we should have new track 0 here. And this is going to update every frame. And in our modules in here, we are going to set filter frequency based on output of this track. I'm gonna use linear interpolation here, and it's gonna move from, let's say, 500 to 2000 based on the movement of this filter input. Now let's hear it. Okay, it's almost good, but I also need to set it to loop, so it repeats. Excellent. And we can also make it more pronounced. It will go down all the way to 0, like this. Excellent. Okay, so that's our filter modulation, and I'm gonna also add a little bit of distortion and delay and maybe some other effects. And now I'm going to introduce you to a new feature called effect chains. So here we have source effect preset and source effect preset chain. So first let's create a chain which will be sort of like in what order the effects will be applied. Okay, so just create one, and in our modular synth we're going to set it to use this effect chain, like this. And now that we got that, we can begin to add effects to it. So we are going to go to Sounds, Effect Preset, and first of all, let's add, let's say, fallback distortion, like this one. Click distortion. Let's open it and increase the amount of distortion. Say, let's say 16 decibels. Okay. Now we're going to add this distortion to our effect chain. And if we play it, it should be heavily distorted. And it hits. So let's add a few more effects. Let's say horse sounds good. Let's also add that to our chain, and it's gonna go after distortion. Oh, I didn't name it, never mind. And finally a little bit of delay. Do we have delay here?
stereo delay, here it is. And let's also add that to our preset chain. And after a couple of tweaks, it sounds like this. And that's the end of this tutorial. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions.